Are you tired of doing the same old stretches and not getting results? Well, today I'm going to share 4 life-changing mobility exercises that are going to target your hips, your shoulders, and their key partner joints, your pelvis and your scapula. Training these joints is going to have monumental effects on your daily life, exercise performance, and overall longevity and health. Without further ado, let's get started. So the reason that we're going to train the hips and the shoulders is because they offer the most range of motion and they have the biggest impact when it comes to improving someone's overall mobility. Think of it like this to understand how important they are. Let's imagine that we took a marble and we put it inside of a shot glass. Now when we're spinning that marble around, we notice that there's not a lot of room for the marble to move. Our ball and socket joints move a lot like this. If we don't have a lot of space, like the shot glass, then our shoulders are going to feel restricted or we have compensations going somewhere else. This also applies for the hips. However, let's say we take that same marble and we put it in a salad bowl. Imagine you have way more space than you do in that shot glass. Just like your shoulder and your hip, your ball and socket joints, if they have more space that they can move around in, they're going to be able to perform better in their motions. The longevity of the joint is going to be better, as well as the increased performance. So our goal here is to train rotation. The first joint we want to work on is going to be the shoulder, and the main motion is going to be internal rotation. Now the reason that we work internal rotation is because it's the fundamental motion of the joint. So essentially it's like actually trying to improve the marble spinning inside of hopefully the salad bowl and not the shot glass. Now when it comes to training rotation, the position doesn't matter, it's really about the intention. So you can do this by a wall, reaching behind your back, or laying on the ground. You want the stretch to be in the back of the shoulder. If you're having your hand reach behind your back, you should feel this in front of the shoulder. Either way, we're actually going to hang out in this stretch position for 60 seconds. After that 60-second period, we have to employ isometrics to get some strength effects there. So this is where we actually want to start to press out of the stretch. So you're going to resist yourself and squeeze that tissue that's being stretched and hold that for about 30 seconds. Think about employing an 8 out of 10 intensity. So if 0 out of 10 was hanging out on the couch and 10 out of 10 was trying to push your car out of the snow, you're going to give me an 8 out of 10. Then we're going to reverse the direction, meaning you're going to try to pull deeper into that stretch. So we're isometrically contracting to get more internal rotation. Once you've done 30 seconds there, slowly relax, and then you can get out of that position. Now that we got the shoulder covered, it's time to train the scapula. So think of the scapula and the shoulder as partners in crime. You really can't divorce one from the other, they have to work in conjunction. So this is where we have to train full range of motion in the scapula itself so that it can support the shoulder as well as transfer force back to the spine. So the way we like to train the scapula is through controlled articular rotations, also called CARs. They are the best way for us to introduce scapular motion as well as add strength and control over that range of motion. When we're doing scapular CARs, one of the main cues is keeping the elbows locked out. So that way we isolate scapular motion. From there, we just want to think about expressing maximal elevation, protraction, driving forward, depression, driving down, retraction, driving back. As we go through that range of motion, try to make that into a smooth circle. Add tension through that so you can feel your body engaged, not letting the spine move. We want to keep the spine as stable as we can. Whatever variation you're doing, you always want to practice control. If you're doing the loaded variation, you really want to also emphasize that eccentric portion going down towards the ground because it's lengthening under load, which is very, very powerful. Next joint we're going to train is the hips. And just like the shoulder, it's a ball and socket joint. So remember our marble in a shot glass, or tennis ball in a salad bowl? We want to make sure we have enough capsular space in the hip, because if we don't, it can lead to other problems, especially in the knee or the spine. I've assessed a lot of spines and hips in the last 15 years, and most of the time when I see somebody that has lower back problems, it's also because they have tight hips, or in this case, really a lack of capsular space in their hips. What we want to think about is trying to get the femur to spin inside the socket. So if you're standing, you want to let that knee drop. If you're seated, you want to think about letting the foot go to the outside of the knee. Or if you're in a 90-90 position, you think about rotating your pelvis towards the back leg. Ideally, you're going to feel a stretch deeply in that hip socket. You may not be able to pinpoint where you feel it. That's okay. As long as it feels deep and it's rotational and it's not painful, that's exactly what we want. After we've been in that stretch for 60 seconds, now it's time to add isometrics. The first one's going to be a Pelvis contraction. Start by pushing your foot into the ground and work up to that intensity for 30 seconds. Then try to reverse your efforts. Imagine lifting your leg off the ground or pulling yourself deeper into internal rotation, again for 30 seconds. Once that's done, slowly relax and get out of the position. So training the hips wouldn't be complete if we didn't address the pelvis. So just like how the scapula helps out the shoulder, the pelvis acts as a bridge between the hips and the spine. And if we can actually learn to control that independently, we can have great results for both the spine and also training the hips. So let's get into it. Just like the scapula, we want to use a controlled articular rotation. So we want to express as much range of motion as we can. In either of the positions that we're giving you, you want to start off by just going through an anterior tilt and a posterior tilt. So think about going forward and backward in a segmental fashion. Once you have the hang of that, we can make it a little bit more complex and go into a lateral tilt. Think about hip hiking to the left and then hip hiking to the right. After you have both of those motions mastered, now it's time to control it into a circle. So transition it all the way through into one full circle. Just imagine you have a laser pointer growing out of your tailbone and you're trying to trace the biggest circle you can, as well as tracing the smoothest circle you can. Because the smoother your motions are, the more control you're demonstrating over that part of your body. So you have all these exercises, but what do you do with them? How do we tie it all together? Well, for each of them, you can think about doing them 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 working sets. So for the upper body ones, like the scapula and the shoulder, I like to put those as either part of my warm-up and or pair them with upper body exercises. So imagine doing push-ups with scapula cars or pull-ups with some shoulder internal rotation drills. The same thing for the lower body. When I do my pelvis or my hip work, I like to pair that either with lower body exercises or add them to the warm-up. I will say though, if you do add them to the warm-up, you may not see a lot of change. Why aren't you going to see a lot of change? Because mobility training is strength training. So if you don't give it the intensity that it deserves, just like you would with a hard deadlift or a heavy squat, you're not really gonna see as much change. Because let's be honest, when we do our warm-ups, we just tend to do a bunch of bullshit with low intensity and we don't really think about it because we wanna do our fun stuff. So it's better to do them in warm-ups than not do them at all. But if you really wanna improve it, you have to add that intensity. And if you need help putting this all together, we have our Learn Mobility membership, which features follow-along classes designed to improve joint mobility and health. It works as a great standalone movement practice, or it can complement any other training program you have going on. Click the link in the description below to find out more. These exercises are just the start. If you want to learn more, then you're going to want to check out our shoulder mobility class, which is designed to increase flexibility and strength in the upper body.